not talking to your clients about staging, you could well be leaving money on the table. My guest today, Elaine, is the founder of Lemon and Lime Interiors and the author of Sell High, Sell Fast. She's worked on some of the most stunning properties in the UK and knows exactly how to position a home to sell quickly for the very best price. We're going to talk about why estate agents are missing a trick by ignoring staging. Plus, you can get some behind-the-scenes stories from Elaine's career. Elaine, welcome to the podcast and thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Good stuff, good stuff. So, as the founder of Lemon and Lime, I know this isn't your complete background. Tell me, what was the transition into home staging for you when you got into it in 2012? Where did that come about?
It was an accident. I didn't know anything about staging. I didn't know it had a name.
Right.
At the point where I started doing what we now call staging in this country, I had 4 children to feed and I needed to do something.
Okay.
I was when I was divorced, I ended up with some residential and some commercial property.
Yeah.
And very quickly had to learn how to manage that because the kids were still small.
Yeah.
I didn't really know anything about property. I'm a mathematician by background and I'd been running my business in business coaching. So I was doing a lot of coaching, particularly in police forces, looking at culture change and how to use coaching as a first line management style.
Yeah.
So very, very different background.
Super
Knew
different.
absolutely nothing about staging. However, during the course of being married to a developer, we had done a significant renovation on a couple of big properties, and I had learned a lot about the difference between a house that looks okay and a house that looks amazing. And I started with my rental properties then, making sure that they looked amazing, even though they were, relatively speaking, low-end rentals, so that I was getting good rents, really. And agents started coming to me. I did a couple of properties that friends were selling, helped them just get good sales. And agents started coming to me and saying, could you just come and have this conversation with my client? It's a bit sensitive. Their house looks a mess. I don't want to lose the instruction by telling them their house looks a mess. Could you do it for me?
Yeah. Be the bearer.
Okay. As a business coach, I'd got 1,000,001 ways of saying, oh my goodness, you can't sell it looking like this. And we went from there, really.
So, in my experience, I think many agents may overlook that. And I know you've had a slightly different experience from the customers that you've dealt with. So if they're overlooking it and agents aren't really realizing that the staging is a part of the selling process, how do you talk to agents around that? How do you convince agents that this is something that actually needs to form part of their strategy when dealing with customers? Is there data or stories that you can share that really hit home as to why people should be making this part of their offering?
And of course, the huge advantage that I have as a mathematician by background is that I have, some would say obsessively, collected data right from day one of the business. And we've very recently actually done a piece of work with 20EA, who collect obviously all the property data, and done a long-term study over the last 9 years of the business as to what different staging's made against property norms. And we know for absolute certain now that the homes that we've staged as Lemon and Lime are 5 times more likely to be sold at asking rather than dropping below asking. They are 20% more likely to be sold over asking than average, and they are 7 times less likely to be sold under asking. So, and we've got hundreds of case studies. We can give you all kinds of one-off case studies where we say this one sold at 15% over asking, but we've now got the long-term data over 9 years of the business.
That's
so we're
good.
Very excited about that.
And I think it's good to be able to back up that message and because it's the nuts and bolts of that conversation around investment on return and the ability to improve that with some upfront investment to make the thing come together, right?
My reputation in the business is very much that we're not cushion fluffers. We're not trying to make things look nice for the sake of making them look nice.
Yeah.
We're selling property. We're helping our agents get really good property prices quickly and really maximising those sales for our clients. And having the data behind that is absolutely essential.
Brilliant. So what are some of the most common mistakes that you see people commit when bringing a property to market? What are some of the things that you see that just makes your skin crawl and the hair stand up on the back of your neck? What are the things that you see that people fall
I
into
think
the trap?
that's an interesting question, because the way that we the way the question was phrased when you sent it over to me was what are the mistakes that homeowners make? I think the mistakes are very rarely homeowners, and I think it's really important that agents recognise, and it was actually the reason for the second book, the one that's called How to Sell Your House, because there's a very big gap between what agents imagine that homeowners coming to the market know and what homeowners actually coming onto the market know. And the agents are the holders of the knowledge. They know how to get the price right. They know what a property needs to look like these days, since Rightmove, video marketing, all of the digital marketing that now happens. Agents know what properties attract buyers. And they know how to promote those properties really well. And a good agent will be not only knowing those things, but will be educating their sellers in those things. And I think there's sometimes a big assumption that homeowners do or should know those things themselves. And of course, many people simply haven't sold a home for 20, 30, more than that years. And Rightmove didn't exist the last time they sold a home. Certainly, post-COVID, the video marketing, the virtual tours, all of those things have become much, much, much more important. And homeowners simply don't know that. And so agents educating homeowners about that can really help them all make sure that the house gets the presentation right, which is so important for the way homes are marketed these days.
So the mistake is to bring it together is actually the agents communicating probably what they already know.
Yeah.
And actually being able to have an upfront conversation with
agents
somebody.
know so much, and they imagine, because it's their day-to-day, they often imagine that homeowners know far more about the process of selling a home than the homeowner actually knows, because it's an event that most homeowners do 3 or 4 times in their lifetime. That's it. Agents are doing it every day, and plugging that gap by talking to them, educating them, giving them reading material, whatever it is, really, really is the best thing I think that an agent can do.
Brilliant. So let's get some behind the scenes stuff from you. Can you share with us some of the most interesting projects that you've worked on, whether they're fabulous homes, exotic locations, or actually unusual things to stage?
Interesting is a lovely word, isn't it?
You can give me horrific.
My sales team will often come back into the office and say, "That was interesting."
I'm not sure I've got the time for that one.
Oh no. We're very lucky. We work most generally at the premium end of the market, kind of middle market upwards, and we see some really fabulous homes. We've staged one that was originally a water tower. We had to re-render it to start with, so we do anything really that it takes. So we had to re-render that one, but it was beautiful when it was done. We've done quite a lot of properties, surprisingly, with towers of one sort or another, the real kind of observatory type towers.
Nice.
And, just really, really fabulous properties. And we've done some properties that should be fabulous. And sadly, very, very often, actually, there's a sad personal story behind the sad houses, where there's perhaps a divorce going on, an acrimonious divorce going on, or perhaps a recent bereavement. And for example, I did one in the New Forest a couple of years ago where I was opening kitchen cupboards and finding dead rats inside, and the smell and the whole message around the house there is very difficult. But usually the house is easy to sort. The people are the thing that you're really having to look after.
So have you ever had ones that you can't fix? Or have you always been, or are you getting your work undone when you leave?
There have only been 2 occasions, actually, where I've said to the family, and bear in mind that we stage upwards of 100, somewhere between 100 and 150 houses a year. And over the 10 years of the lifetime of the business as a standalone business, there's only been 2 occasions where I've said to the family, we can absolutely sort this house, but you need to find somewhere else to live while it's on the market, because the house was just too bad. One was a family, again, a difficult divorce. They'd got 4 teenage boys,
right, and
the house was trashed.
Yeah.
I have never seen so much dirty underwear in the pile in my life. And I've got 4 kids.
Seem a fair share.
Yeah. And fortunately, they'd had the house on the market for several months before we were invited to come and have a look. And they were reluctant but able to move in with family while we did it. And we did painting, we did replastering where they'd had leaks and never bothered. We recarpeted, we made the whole place immaculate. And they got a sale within a few days of it going back on the market. So it worked for them.
Yeah. It was worth the effort.
Just occasionally we have to be a bit tough.
Have to remove the customer.
It's very rare, but occasionally.
So, in your book, which we've got loads of copies in the office, actually, funny enough, at the moment. I think we must have acquired them somehow. Sell high, sell fast. You talk around the psychology behind buyer decisions. Could you help us understand that a little bit more? Could you share any insights on how home staging or the presentation of a home can influence the psychology and therefore the buyer and subsequently their decision?
Yeah, I think we all want to fall in love, don't we? And I talk about Rightmove being like Tinder, for example. We want to see that first photo and go, that's the one for me, whether that's a partner or whether that's a house. And I think that's particularly relevant these days when so many properties go on to Instagram, Facebook. Agents are using social media as a marketing tool as well. And people really want that to feel that emotional connection with something that's probably the biggest financial purchase they're ever going to make. They really want to do that. And then, so if you can capture them with beautiful photographs, because, even amazing photographers can only take photographs of what's in front of them. Of course. And if what's in front of them is dated, boring, clinical, scruffy, cluttered, all of those things, then they can't take great photos. But if what's in front of them is beautiful interior, then you'll get beautiful photos. And at that point, the art of the staging is to work with the photographer to get those photos, to get the video right. And then, as soon as somebody walks through the door, immediately that emotional connection is enhanced because now it smells lovely, you've got beautiful diffusers around, that generally the atmosphere that's been created in the home through the staging, through the placement of furniture, it shows off all the best aspects of the home. It shows off the lifestyle that now they can enjoy once they're in there. And what you really want then as an agent is that you've got a potential buyer who's running around the home taking photos of all the amazing things and WhatsApping it across to their partner, their mother, their children, and going, wow, you have to come and see this with me. Because suddenly they've really, really got that connection and they fall in love. And staging, it absolutely creates those little, we would call them vignettes professionally, but those little kind of corners, those little lifestyles. It might be a beautiful chair with a little table and a cup of coffee next to it, looking out on the garden. All of those things that just help
sort of things
really
that people visualize themselves in. I get it. This isn't on the question, so I apologize, but I have a theory and a thought that we are going to see an evolution in our marketing, and we are going to see an evolution in the video marketing that we put out. Can you see a world in where not only do we necessarily stage the properties for photographs, but we actually stage them for video, where you might have actors or a family living in this house and showing those real life examples of how this home could be used that could then be utilized in the marketing?
Well, and of course, interestingly, that has been being done in the higher end of the market in the States for years.
Right.
And one of the things that I spoke to the guy that we've used for a lot of years as a photographer about in the very early stages of his business and my business was whether the UK market was ready for that, whether we could create something whereby we could bring in those families to do those things. So yes, I do think it will happen. I think here it's much slower than it's been in the States, because I think we're naturally, as a nation, we're a little bit skeptical of that kind of thing. We don't like to feel as though we're being sold to. We want to buy, we don't want to be sold to. You know, there's a lot of things that go on in somebody's head.
And obviously that's quite key to your business, right? If we're behind the US and staging is that much further ahead, how have you convinced your partners, which are really the agents in creating those conversations to happen? How have you worked to change the mindset of maybe those skeptical agents from home staging?
That has been my last 10 years' work. I've written 2 books. I've spoken on every stage I've invited to.
Don't let me.
Podcasts, webinars, all those things. And you know, all joking aside, it is an education piece. It really is an education piece. And the data is a big part of that. Really good case studies are a big part of that, because again, we're not doing interiors. We're not interior designers. We're not setting out to do interior design. We're setting out to help properties get sold. And the more evidence that we've got that what we do works, then the easier it is to bring on board with us new agents and their clients, their sellers. And I think that really has been what we've done over the last 10 years. Interestingly, Kirsty, who works with me in the business, has literally just on Monday come back from the Australian home staging conference. The Australian model is increasingly like the American model. And the layer of people resource in my business that could go at the point where we reach the same levels as Australia or America is my sales team. So I have a whole sales team that go out and they chat to agents, they form relationships with agents. They go out directly to the homeowners and explain to them what we do, how we do it, and and what people can do themselves and what costs might be, all of that kind of thing. And I have a whole team of people that do that. In the American model, in the Australian model, that layer in the business doesn't exist, because agents know exactly what a stager does. Homeowners know exactly what a stager does. They phone, say, could you stage this property? How much is it going to cost me? The stager says it's going to cost you X amount, £5,000, for example. We'll be there next Tuesday.
That's more culturally accepted as part of the model.
It's understood as part of the sales model, and it's accepted. And people know without any shadow of a doubt, because it's been going for so long, that it makes a difference.
And when you're staging homes, and obviously with things like the rise in video and how that sort of developed, have you found that you've had to change the way you stage homes to ensure that the video can flow throughout the entire home and still see the same great product? Or was there ever a stage where you'd only stage a few rooms in the house, like the main rooms? Or how has that developed?
Yeah, and you're right, it has changed things. So particularly in what we would call our speed staging versions, so where somebody perhaps has got a family living in a property, it's really quite cluttered, but the photographer's coming next week and an agent will phone us and say, can you help? Well, we simply haven't got time, and they may not have the budget to do the whole works. So previously, we could get away with sending in a couple of people from my team, and we would do the quick hit version. So we would scoop things up, we would put them into boxes, we would shove those boxes behind the sofa, under the beds, all of those things. And actually, with good angles on the photographs, you couldn't see any of that. Now, of course, the video comes in on the back of the photos, and the video picks up everything.
Yeah. I've been an agent. I've hidden stuff behind the sofa to take that first image. So I know that you now need that 360 approach, and it needs to be good all round.
Yeah,
right?
you do. And you're right. It also means that you need to do all of the rooms. People would say to us, and usually from a cost perspective, could we just do the main bedroom? Yeah. My argument has always been, well, you can for the photographs, but when somebody comes around, you don't want them to be really, really thrilled by the house until they go into the first guest bedroom, or the bedroom that their son's going to have, or the bedroom that their twin daughters are going to move into. You don't want, and suddenly there's no furniture in there. So the kids begin to be disappointed that, the friend that they've taken with them says, well, I can't come and stay now because the spare bedroom isn't great. All of those things. So you could get away with those on photos. These days with the video, you've got to do everything.
Of course. And what are your thoughts around the sort of rise in technology and things like virtual staging? How is that having an impact in how people are perceiving online, publications and marketing, and then how does that convert when that actually turns into a viewing?
So virtual staging is great. It really does have a place in the staging world, and it's not the answer to everything. So we recommend virtual staging in a number of different circumstances. One is off plan. So if a developer is trying to get interest on a site before it's actually out of the ground, virtual staging is a really, really good tool to do that, because people start to fall in love even before the walls are there. Secondly, if you're doing lettings, for example, it's a very cost-effective alternative to real staging, and it's something that we can get virtual staging done in a property that's still tenanted, as long as we've got high-res photos to work with. Even if it's full of the tenant stuff, we can get the tenant stuff virtually taken out and lovely things put in, which is a big help to help not have those void periods in between rentals, which is great for landlords. We use virtual staging if there's a room, for example, and kitchens in older properties are very often in the wrong room, because that was where they were historically. They were kind of at the back of the house and not big rooms. And we can use virtual staging to say to somebody, just to show potential in a property, this is where the kitchen actually is, but we believe that with the right planning and so on in place, then you would put the kitchen into this room and look how amazing it looks in this room. And it can, again, just give somebody who perhaps wouldn't consider that house, make them think, oh, wow, it might work for us after all. The situation in which we don't recommend virtual staging is if a house is fully built, whether it's lived in or whether it's empty, that we wouldn't encourage a developer who's brought a property to practical completion to virtually stage it then. They want to sometimes because it's cheaper. But you can get somebody to come, you can get people to book a viewing on virtual staging, and even though psychologically they know that that furniture isn't going to be in there when they get there, because it says online these are virtual images, when they get there, their first emotion when you open the door and there's nothing there is disappointment. And it's really hard to sell a property to somebody who's disappointed.
Yeah, going back to
from
the
minute they
psychology
walk.
piece that's mentioned, it's actually that journey of a customer and having them in the right frame of mind, I suppose.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So it has a great place, but it's not the answer to everything.
No, it's really insightful. So my last question, if an agent is interested in bringing this into their business and making it part of their full service offering to their customers, how have you found it most successfully introduced? So what experiences have you seen where people have actually really taken this on well, they've built it into part of their offering, and actually both them and their clients are seeing the benefits of integrating something like home staging in the offering?
The agents that use staging most successfully are the agents who use it as part of their value add at every single house that they have a market appraisal, where any house where they go and have a conversation about selling the property. And all they are saying is, as part of what we do within our business, we offer you the opportunity to have a free consultation with a staging expert. Would you allow me to pass your contact details over?
Yeah.
And mostly a homeowner, I'm getting something for free.
Yeah.
I'm getting something that's from specialists, experts in a field. However you big that up. This is a copy of the book that Elaine, their founder, has written. This is, all kinds of things that you can use for a homeowner to think or to understand, not to think, but to understand that actually it's a really big value add in what this agent is bringing over and above any other agent that they've spoken to. And at that point, we will do either a home visit. It depends geographically and time-wise what's straightforward, because everybody wants their house on the market quickly. So we're working in very short timelines.
Yes.
Or we got very good during COVID at doing WhatsApp video calls around houses and being able to offer some advice there. We can always do quotes off plan if a property's empty. So, but it's just part of, that's what we do as an agency. Yeah. Part of what we do that makes us stand out is to give you advice on your presentation. But we don't do it ourselves. We bring in experts to do it.
Yeah. I think there are lots of professionals around agents in the market for the various things that are required throughout the process. Yeah. And I really see that you guys and what you do as part of that. And I can see it as a growing trend in the UK. And I think it'll be great to make sure that provides part of the full service that agents can give. Yeah, well, sure. Thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate you joining me and having that conversation around home staging and your expertise. So thank you very much. Appreciate you.
It's really lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
Cheers.
I-A-D.